I'm the man who has the ball. I'm the man who can throw it faster than... So that is why I am better than everyone in the world.
All right, welcome into episode 402 of Tigers Radio here at MotorCityBengals.com. I'm Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Uper and Chris Brown. And you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartMedia, and Stitcher. And, of course, the content gods have once again blessed us, Chris, with content. We'll get to that as the Tigers have a new player personnel, but VP of player personnel we'll get to a little bit as well. Tigers win the series against the White Sox, but depending on where you're at in Michigan, and we have a lot of out-of-state listeners too, so there's a lot of that. But how much rain you're getting, Chris?
Yeah, it hasn't stopped. It's been raining for about 30 hours straight, I'd say, maybe longer than that. And it's not been like a torrential downpour at any time. It's been heavier at some times than others, but it just hasn't stopped. I would imagine we've had 4+ inches of rain. I don't know. Yeah,
it was according to the Dearborn area got about 4 or 5 inches. Uper, I know, is the weather changing already down there in Iowa? Is it 50, 60 degrees already, or?
We had like one day of that, but really it's mostly been upper 70s, lower 80s pretty steadily, and it's supposed to stay that way through next week. Sun's been out. There's been no precip here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be back into the 70s tomorrow. It's weird. Like, I'm not a weatherman here, but let's play weatherman. It looked like we got caught by like one giant storm that was ushering in a cold front for like a day, and then hit by a second storm that's bringing in a warm front. Right. And they were like within like 24 hours. So, but yeah, I don't mind it really. A little rain. I always think we don't appreciate enough that the substance we need to live just falls right out of the sky for us.
Normally, I wouldn't have an issue with it if it wasn't consistently all summer. And to be fair, though, the street did not flood for the first time all summer. This was the first time that my street did not flood. But instead, we had an issue where there was water in the kitchen because something got backed up. So there was a different type of issue with water. So, yeah. But
you can't catch a break this summer.
No. But at the same time, it's all good. I mean, again, I have a house and I'm able to do all these things. So grateful for that. But so a lot of the things to get to, and let's start with today's move. As the Tigers were off today, the Chicago White Sox clinched the AL Central as expected, and they were able to do it in Chicago, not in Detroit. So the Tigers were able to hold that off, and we'll get to that series here shortly. But it was interesting today because it was kind of, again, the Tigers always have a good way of catching everybody off guard when they drop news. Have you noticed that? Like, they were just able to just kind of go and walk away. And it is to me, one of the most amazingest things about PR is they choose when to do it. And PR is just a matter of, it's a good strategy, of course. And Ryan Garko is a new vice president of player development. And so it took us a second to realize who he was and what kind of background he has. But I'll start with you, Uper. Did you know, have any idea who he was? Do you have an inkling of anything?
Well, I remembered the name, but I'll be perfectly honest. For about the first 2 or 3 minutes, I was confused with Ryan Klesko. I was like, oh, yeah, he used to play for the Braves. And I remember, Garko. No, he was Indian. So that took a couple minutes. And then once I had that mentally sorted out, obviously I had no real knowledge of what his front office background and coaching background was. I knew he went to Stanford back in the day. So obviously then you stereotype things and think, well, he must be fairly smart. And but you look at his resume, he certainly has attacked the sport from a lot of different angles since his playing days. So he had a good career in baseball. He even went over to Asia, got a taste of that, saw what baseball's like over there. Has worked as a manager and as a coach and as an analyst, analytical type person. Yeah, I couldn't give you much more than that, other than, you got to hope that they know something, that they've had their eye on him for a while, and he's the man.
What about you, Chris? What was your first impressions?
Yeah, it caught me completely off guard. Obviously, I wrote an article last week just trying to guess at who they might be targeting, but it was mostly just darts, darts at a dartboard. I thought I'd look at teams that are good at developing players and pick some people from their front office, or and then I picked some random people from college and so forth. I don't travel in the circles that talk about player development that much. So, like you, I actually remember Ryan Garko because he was a legit prospect back when I first really started paying attention to minor leaguers. There was a run there in the early 2000s where Cleveland had just this string of highly ranked prospects that all completely busted. There was Andy Marte, there was Ryan Garko, there was Matt Laporta, there was Jeremy Sowers, there's one kid who was their number one prospect for like 5 straight years and just constantly got injured. But
would you put Richie Sexton among that group?
I think Sexton was there in the late 90s, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I always kind of feel like he was the beginning of that kind of that whole big prospect hype and no sizzle. Or no
yeah, well, I mean, he had a lot of home runs, didn't he? Or maybe I'm confusing him with or Russell Branyan. I thought Sexton had a couple 40 home run seasons, but Laporta, and I tweeted this out, not Laporta, Garko. I confused them both because Laporta was also a first baseman. I tweeted out that Garko he became a guy who was kind of used as a cautionary tale for drafting first baseman, right-handed hitting, right-handed throwing first baseman, because he was a great hitter in college, great hitter in minor league baseball, like a 285 career hitter in the minors, and hit 275 in the majors. Mm-hmm. But he did not have enough home run power. I think he finished with a 108 WRC plus, which is, above average, but not nearly enough to stick in baseball as a first baseman. And so it was just kind of one of those it'll be interesting to see, as you were saying, like he's got an interesting resume. He's been around a lot of different smart people, and we have to believe that this is heavily influenced by Hench and Feder and whoever else there on the coaching staff, was pushing for this because, it is kind of out of left field.
Not to mention, it has a very Dodger flavor to it because he was the AA coach for AA Tulsa in the mid 2014, 2015. So
2016.
Yeah. So he was very familiar with the Dodgers. He was assistant and recruiting coordinator over at Stanford, his alma mater. And he also coached the Tigers, the Pacific Tigers. Yeah, I said it right. I don't know why I thought I was second guess myself, but either way, so he already has this kind of a very good pedigree to him. And I mean, I put the tweet in the article today that he is a big believer in driveline and so analytics aside, but again, there's this kind of like, well, who is he, what have you? And, you get a glowing recommendation from Gabe Kapler, who is a pretty good manager, and the Giants just are in the postseason, and he's a guy who, in baseball circles, Gabe Kapler is a good baseball guy. And so either way, it's turning out the Dodgers have like this Ryan or Bill Walsh-esque tree going on right now. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. I know I'm using football terms there, but you don't see that very often. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but do you see that very often in baseball, guys? I mean, do you see that kind of like Bill Walsh-like thing in baseball where you see this growing out right now? Because I'm trying to think of like the Andrew Freeman tree a little bit.
Yeah. It seems like you see it more with front offices than you do with manager types. I do think of Joe Madden was a coach under Mike Scioscia forever in the Angel system forever before he got his shot. But yeah, you don't often see coaches spread out like that, at least in my remembrance. I think
quite a few people, maybe because due to longevity, who worked for La Russa or played for La Russa, ended up managing somewhere down the line. And then Joe Madden himself, when he was in Tampa, at least a few guys splintered off to other places that played or worked for him. But yeah, I think it's more prevalent front office.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that, and I think we talked about this a while back, was you don't necessarily see a lot of hitting or pitching coaches then take the step up to manager. It's like a different set of skills, and then they just kind of stay in that position. Whereas in football, you'll see he's our defensive coordinator, he's our special teams coach, and then the next step is obviously head coach. But I don't know. Yeah, it's listen. If you're going to emulate any organization, it's obviously the Dodgers. The one thing, unless I missed it, I know he was doing replay stuff with the Angels. What else was he doing with the Angels?
He was coordinating their offense, I believe.
Okay. I don't think he's ever done any scouting, as a title as a scout, if you will, which is interesting to me because we know they just came from, Littlefield was a scout, Chad, a scout. They're going the opposite way here with the analytics stuff to me. And not to say that Garko probably could be a fine scout and he probably would be good at it. But I'm just saying that they're going for something I think that can be a little bit more, or that can be quantified a little bit more, I suppose.
Would he have worked with George Lombard?
I don't know what else Lombard did.
I'm just trying to figure out where the meeting of the minds came there, where he got on their radar.
Yeah, that's a good question.
No, because I saw a tweet earlier that he was under Lombard. Him and George Lombard came cross paths at some point.
Okay.
So again, even in Chris Fetter too as well. So it's just this continuation of having somebody that you can trust and go with. And to me, and this is okay. I thought about this a little bit more, but there is trees. Like there's the I'm trying to think of the former. Dave Dabrowski, Alavila, Littlefield, all that. That's a tree right there. But I guess in terms of base, it's not as publicized in baseball than it is in football when you think of Bill Walsh and what have you. But I was thinking about this, and in reality, it's kind of almost it's scary, but in a good way for Tiger fans, because this is kind of like, you look at this season alone and it's kind of an unknown, but you see the progress, but then the rest of it's kind of a relative unknown when it comes to the farm system, because right now they have a lot of turnover. If they're going to do this their way, I'm assuming there's going to be some turnover, right? Because a lot of these guys, except the last two draft classes, are still under the old regime and the old way of thinking. So, or they're just going to try and polish them up.
Yeah, I assume with any new hire at any position, there's going to be a lot of turnover.
Yeah, we already saw that already with 11 the coaches that were not brought back, and of course this was a contract year for that to happen. But still, we mentioned that during the Toledo playoff discussion, and so, but still, either way, this is kind of an interesting step for the Tigers, and it's kind of new territory of thinking, because we're not honestly, is this kind of you've watched the Tigers a little longer than I have, but it just seems like a very different, I think this is even different than probably since the Randy Smith era, because the Randy Smith era was completely different than the whole McDonald Bill LaJoy's era, because that was old school as they came.
Yeah, you just thought his whole idea was he was going to wheel and deal and trade and keep it exciting and build that winning team. And obviously it never happened, but it was never dull. That's for sure. But the way I see this is the Tigers have really been the same team for so long. And they paid lip service through the Gardenhire years that they were going to become a more analytical driven team. We all knew that was crap. There's no way they were going to change the Tigers not going to change their stripes with those guys in charge. This is a whole new line of thinking. This is someone from the outside, someone who has worked with other organizations who have been successful. It has to be a breath of fresh air, and I think it's kind of exciting. Now, how much can a guy in Garko's position impact the team quickly? I don't know. This might be a move that really we start seeing the benefits for maybe around 23 and 24, because I think what you alluded to earlier, they're going to have to blow out some of the guys that the current regime didn't bring in. And so I was thinking, if you're someone who was drafted in 2017 or 2018 and you haven't made a ton of progress You better sharpen the resume up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's in my head, it kind of feels like the Tigers have done this all backwards. Not that I'm unhappy about it, finally happening, but you basically, I mean, the 3 big pitching prospects are all up. They're not prospects anymore. The 2 big hitting prospects are going to be up next year. They won't be prospects anymore. They've come through the system and developed under the old regime that was apparently not good enough, and so now they're bringing in all this whole new stuff, and it just makes you wonder, like, wow, what? I mean, not that Garco can't help develop these players at the major league level too. I mean, that's where a lot of development goes on. But yeah, it just feels like, they put all these processes in place, and then the last thing they did was change the people in charge, and it's kind of like, all right, that's strange, but
it makes kind of sense in a way if you think about it, Chris. I mean, outside of Tarek Skubal being a 9th round draft pick, and in terms of even looking at what they have right now, it's a very top heavy system. I mean, you want a system that want to have churn out at least a couple depth guys and good organizations. And maybe they looked at what they saw and go, I mean, you look at the AAA and AA shuffle this year in the pitching staff department alone, that was just a lot of juggling. And if you look at teams like Tampa or other organizations, I mean, the Cubs, for example, come to mind in the sense that they were handling it terribly, but teams like Tampa, the Yankees, they just have this like onslaught of pitchers coming up and what have you. So, yeah, that was the Tiger. Kean right there with a good comment there.
I didn't have my comments on.
Yeah, and also right here, and Michael brings up a good point too. And that's exactly what I was getting at right there. And he's absolutely right. You want a return for the top 10 draft picks. Absolutely. And we're just not seeing that right now. And right now we have, if you're watching us live, we have the Tigers AAA affiliate, the Mud Hens, of course, playing Louisville on
Brady Policelli with a big bomb.
Wow, nice. And earlier, Ryan Kreidler with the game-winning home run as the Toledo is now part of the final stretch, which is 10 games, the best winning percentage, and there's a nice move there, and they got him out. So anyway, I don't want to be distracted too much about that. But anyway, that's where I think they wanted to see more return on investment from their system because they weren't seeing it because it's very top heavy. So, but we move on, and the Cardinals, by the way, this just came in, a breaking news. The Cardinals are the 4th team in modern MLB history since 1900 to overcome a deficit of 5 runs to extend a winning streak to 12 or more games. They're the first team to do that since the Moneyball Athletics in 2002.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that.
Magic.
That's wild.
Yeah, they are
wild and crazy stuff.
They are playing some amazing baseball right now. There's no question. They made some moves at the deadline that people did not understand, and they've worked. So, kudos to them.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of Cardinal fans calling out, just getting upset about the way they handled the trade deadline. But again, that's why
all you have to do is look at the standings. So they've won 12 games in a row, and they are now 13 games above 500, 14 games above 500. So they were basically a 500 team, and then they went, let's just win. So yep. I don't know. It's funny.
Speaking of winning, by the way, the Tigers impressive 2-game. Well, it was technically, it was a 2-game sweep of the White Sox. And let's start with Monday night's game with the pitching matchup there. 4-3 was the final, and you had Matt Manning against Carlos Rodon, which on paper does not look like a matchup the White Sox would go in and go out and just run out. But apparently, Rodon was removed after the 3rd inning. He had some issues with his shoulder. Is that what it was?
Yep.
Yeah. It's scary for the White Sox. I don't know, man. It is. You watch the Tigers this year, and I don't know how many months now it's been where I've had the feeling, even if they're down late in the games, I have the feeling that they're going to come back and at least make it interesting, if not come back and win. It just, it's a very strange feeling to have after the last few years, where like as soon as they got down, it was like, all right, well, this is over. So yeah, man, it's. I don't know. The White Sox have not been great in the second half of the season, but we know they're still extremely talented. They're just kind of playing out the string, it seems like. But the Tigers are just going out there and scrapping and pulling out these wins that are fun to watch.
And then the bullpen. I mean, it's you look at it. Ian Kroll, Drew Hutchison, and Alex Lange, who got his first major league save. Lange, is it? I'm always saying his name incorrectly. Damn it,
Because it looks like range, but it's Lang.
Lang with his first career save, his changeup on point, but Drew Hutchison, 2 innings, 1 hit, 3 strikeouts. It's supposed to be an ERA 1.76 out of the bullpen. And then the following day, again, the bullpen came through, and it was a 5-3 victory. Now 4 games under 500, and Alexander wasn't a pretty game. 5 innings, 8 hits, or 2 runs on 8 hits rather. And then Kroll came out there for an out. But Garcia, who's been struggling, went out there and looked pretty good. His slider was back, looked like a good plus pitch. Jason Foley held it down. And then Michael Fulmer with a nice curve, which will be Jake's going to be coming out with an article about that tomorrow. But
Nice.
yeah, so it's again the scrapping by, and Uper, the bats. I mean, I know that Eric Haas has struggled a little bit since the All-Star break, but good to see Daz Cameron 3 hits on. Coming out with 3 hits. Victor Reyes, the guy that you have championed since day one, 4 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Your man.
Hey,
how's it feel?
Every few weeks, he has these games where, hey, he looks like a ball player. I think. Well, let's worry about Vic later. I love Vic, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but he's a legitimate Major League Baseball backup outfielder. And I think he's mostly proven that. He's a guy you can have on your bench, and he's going to contribute now and then. But overall, it's good to see a guy like Cameron. I was more excited about that. Put some good swings on the ball. I saw him for 3 games here in Des Moines. He looked pretty good. He was going to the opposite field. He was making sharp contact. That's, to me, is a wild card player for next year. If he could become a regular or semi-regular player, I really think the athleticism in the outfield to go with the athleticism of Baddoo and Riley Green and Derek Hill, they have a chance at building an outfield just from among those guys, even if they don't bring in the big money free agent in the outfield. So that was, a lot of good things happened in that White Sox series, but I like seeing Cameron contribute as much as any of it.
Yeah, no. What was it? He went 3 for 3 with a walk or something like that.
Yeah,
it's interesting from watching Daz Cameron the last several years. When he's at his best, he's hitting the ball hard to the opposite field. That's what he does best. That's when he's locked in, and then he'll go through these stretches where it looks like he's guessing on every pitch and guessing wrong on every pitch. He'll take a fastball right down the middle and then wave at a slider off the plate, and it's really strange. But yeah, I mean, I agree. When he's locked in, he seems like a really good player, and I'd like to see him get more playing time. And I think we're gonna down the stretch now. So,
well, there's no reason not to.
Yeah,
like the 2 homers I saw him hitting here in Des Moines, they're carbon copies, opposite field, low piercing line drives that just cleared the fence, and then 2 innings later, he hit one that missed clearing the fence by about a foot. And it was the exact same swing. He was just locked in, and he was driving the ball. It was really fun to see.
Yeah, and it makes it interesting too, because you look at Derek. Unfortunately, Derek Hill had an injury last week against Tampa, and the way he plays is kind of physical, and so I know a lot of fans are saying, well, that's his own fault. But I mean, agree to disagree on that. It's also a little bit. I think it's a little bit of bad luck. If the guy keeps getting kind of banged up like that, could he play a little smarter? Absolutely. But again, Daz Cameron does everybody a favor by stepping up and proving to everybody else that he's worth what he's going to hopefully be contributing in 2022. And another player that stood out to me in the series before we go to inside the numbers was Grossman. And Robbie Grossman is just 2 steals away from 2020, which selfishly I want him to get that. And I think Kreidler just went deep again. Is that Kreidler? Yeah. Kreidler just went deep again.
Rock the Kreidler of love. It's the Kreidler of love.
It don't rock easily. All right. So
22 on the year.
Yeah, number 22 on the year. And I literally had Kreidler. Yes, he did. And That was good.
Yeah.
So if anybody, again, if you want to watch us, this was nice. The minor league game was on as we're recording, and we haven't
I
been
believe
taken down yet. So
that's 3 home runs in game 2 and 4 on the day. So what, $200? You said every $50 every home run.
Yep. For every home run Toledo hits during the home stretch or the final stretch.
Sorry, they're showing the random mascot in center field.
Yeah, that was cool. I thought you were getting the clip there too for a second, but no. For every home run, there is it goes $50 towards the Boys and Girls Club of Toledo. So the more home runs they can get, the better. And another person up here is Christian Stewart, who had 20 home runs, so it's possible he can hit a home run here. But the Reds farm system right now, in terms of AAA guys, it's been everybody's up where they're up. There's not really much of anybody else left there.
Yeah, that was the thing with that when the Hens were here in Des Moines too. That Cubs roster was so barren. It was hard to are the Mud Hens hitting the ball this great, or is the pitching that bad, or is a little bit of both? And I think that might be the case around a lot of AAA right now. Yeah,
and even with you look at the you know what? I don't know, Keen. I don't know if we do or not. If we were playing the MLB stream, by the way, we would have been knocked out already. So apparently, no one. It's kind of sad.
No one cares. Come on.
Yeah. So
it's just
while we wait for Chris to get back on, because he looked like he was kicked off, or he went to go grab the Kreidler home run, which I think is probably the latter.
Sure. Well, then we should talk about the Vic Reyes extension talks.
Yeah. Somebody's listening on stream going, "What? What is going on?" No. There you go. Okay, so there's Chris.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. Whenever I switch tabs here, it's been acting up on me. So
okay. I thought you went to go offline to go grab the Kreidler home run.
I did grab it.
Oh, nice. All right.
I figured I'd make the most of it.
While you were gone, we agreed on the 4-year extension for Vic Reyes. So
hey, I mean, 15 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good, man. So, but at any rate, so it dude, I was thinking about that 50 million. That I don't know that would fly with anybody for that.
Maybe
matter,
15 total.
Oh no, there we go. That's a lot more reasonable.
It's time for Rogelio and Chris to go inside the numbers.
All right, it's time for Inside the Numbers. And I'll start with you. What's your Inside the Number for the week? And that was
my Inside the Number is 7.2 and then 4 million. Okay. So 7.2 is the number for the leader in MLB in barrels per swing.
Barrels per swing. Okay. All right.
Barrels per swing. Now, I will tell you in the top 10, there are some names you would probably guess. Acuna, Vlad Jr., Judge, Tatis, and so on. Gary, take one guess at who that might be at barrels per swing, the leader in MLB.
Ohtani?
He's on the list, but no.
And who'd you say was on the list already?
Vlad, Acuna, Tatis, Donaldson.
Wait, did Riley Green just go deep? Hold on. Oh, damn it. Oh, damn it.
Oh.
The way they made it.
We got our own Shep over here.
I pulled the Matt Shepard. Sorry, folks.
No, that's all right.
All right. Let's see. What you got a guess here?
Swing.
Barrels per swing. Leader.
It better not be a pitcher other than Ohtani. Okay.
All right. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna guess the Blue Jay, Marcus Semien.
No.
That's a good call.
Oh.
Right division. You're in the right division.
Michael goes, you pulled the shot. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, I'm stumped.
Yeah, yeah. Who is it?
It is one Mike Zenino.
Mike said, what?
Mike Zenino. Nobody puts the barrel on the bat per time that they swing more than Mike Zenino. Now, he is striking out 37% of the time. But when he makes contact, it is all home runs. He has only 10 doubles this year. The rest of everything else he hits is a home run. I think like 20 singles as well. He's worth about 3.5 WAR right now, even though he's hitting 209. He's really been a valuable catcher for the Rays in a lot of ways because when he hits the ball, he pounds it. Now, here's what I want to know. he has a $4 million option next year. And the Rays, being who the Rays are they going to pick that up? Because they have Mejia, who in part-time duty has played well, and he's a former top prospect, and they probably like him. I would bet they think they can round up a catcher somewhere. Do you think they bring back Meg Zenino?
That's a good question. I thought his option was actually for $7 million for some reason.
I saw 4. I looked at Baseball Reference.
I think you might be right, but
Baseball let me down recently once, so I probably shouldn't take that as gospel. But
I'm checking Cott's contracts. But either way, $4 million, $7 million seems about the same to the Rays to me. Yeah.
Is he the kind of hitter you would like to see the Tigers pursue? Pretty much all or nothing, but the all is pretty good when he.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us kind of hoped that Jake Rogers would develop into a Zenino type, right? A plus defender who hits home runs and walks a little bit and strikes out all the time. I don't know. I wouldn't mind Zenino for a year at all.
He's coming off a big year. He was an all-star. The Rays might go to the World Series. Who knows? Do you think he'll be out there for 1 year? I just wonder if he's going to be looking for a multi-year commitment.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody looks for a multi-year commitment. I wonder if he'll get it.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Here's what I saw. Sorry. So the value of the 2022 club option increases to $5 million with 80 games played, $6 million with 90 games played, and $7 million with 100 games played. I don't know how many games he's played this year. Let me look. It's probably over 100, I would assume.
I would bet it is.
So,
or it will
I think at $4 million, 103 games. So I thought at $4 million, I thought they might try it. At $7 million, I don't see it happening.
Yeah,
which seems absurd, but
yeah,
there you go.
Tampa has no fear, right? We know that.
Yeah.
They have no fear of pissing off their fan base with the 12 people that are out there, and they won't care about the criticism they get from around baseball and talking heads on MLB Network. So if they don't see $7 million in value, I could see them cutting him loose.
Yeah, and that would be one of my top options, I think, there for ideally you'd like him to be left-handed, but whatever. You take what you can get, and I'll take a valuable catcher.
Sounds good.
Nice.
All right, Chris, what's your inside number?
So mine is 8.4. Not all that different than Youp's, I guess. But it's going to take some getting to. So strap in. So I think we've talked about this before. I don't know. We've talked about everything on the show before, but there's an idea within baseball regarding WAR, wins above replacement. People kind of ask this question periodically, like how many wins would a team made up entirely of replacement players have in a season? And the idea there is generally around 48, which goes to show you how bad the 2003 Tigers and the 2019 Tigers were, that they were below replacement level as a team. Mm-hmm. But when you start at 48, what you can then do is you can go to Fangraphs or Baseball Reference and look at their team WAR, and you can add the total offensive WAR for the team and the total pitching WAR for a team, add it to 48 wins, and get a general approximation of how many wins the team should have based on how they performed. So, and it usually works. It's within 3 or 4 wins for every team, and in the aggregate, it works well. And so I did it with the 2021 records, and the 9 teams right now are within 2 wins of their projections based on adding the WAR. 20 teams are within 5, and there are 8 teams within 8 wins of their projections. Most of the ones that are within 8 wins or over 8 wins are deep on the negative side, and there you could kind of guess. The Mets are -8 and 8.8 wins based on their WAR. So the Marlins are 10, the Nationals 10, a little National League East vibe there. The White Sox are actually -11.7. So based on their talent, like we mentioned before, they should have almost 12 more wins.
Wow. And
the Diamondbacks are at -12.9, and the leader to Fangraphs is the Orioles at -16.9. I don't. Yeah, it's brutal. But there are only 2 teams that have outperformed their WAR projections by 8 or more. So have 8 or more wins than projected. The Mariners at 10.6, and your Detroit Tigers at 8.4. So And then, I did the same thing at Baseball Reference, and you get the same idea, same kind of totals. Only two teams with have outperformed their projections by more than 4 wins to Baseball Reference. The Giants at 11.1 and the Tigers at 4.2. So, pick your poison, pick it, call it 8 wins, call it 4 wins, call it 6 wins. The Tigers are one of a couple teams in baseball that have played better than their talent indicates. And I was thinking about writing an article about this, trying to figure out why. But I think you could probably safely chalk it up to coaching. Maybe not all of it, but I think a significant portion of it. And I always talk about how you can't quantify the impact of a manager, but that might be it right there. 4 to 8 wins.
There's an example of that, and there's this argument going on. Well, Jim Leyland wasn't a difference maker for wins, and . All right, it's a dumb argument. And to me, Jim Leyland was an impactful manager. Did he get burned out in Colorado, and did he get burned out with the Marlins? Sure. Who's that random dog barking in the background? ADD.
That would be mine.
Okay. I just like it because it's randomly timed well. It's well timed too. It's like just almost within rhythm. But
that was Sweet Lou.
A Sweet Lou. Okay.
Oh. Lou. Let me look real quick. I'm looking here. The Tigers in 2006, 21.8 wins on offense. Sorry, while we're doing this, 21.8 on offense.
Yep.
And 18.5 for pitching. So basically 40 wins.
So they're about +7.
Yeah, because they won. What did they win? That 95 that year?
95, yeah.
So there you go. Jim Leyland possibly worth 7 wins that year, but not a good manager.
Yeah, apparently not, because people
again. You can't chalk it all up to a manager. There are a lot of funny things that happen during baseball season, but if you want to put it on a manager, you could. So anyway, that's my number, 8.4.
All right. So my number this weekend involving Baltimore too is 6.06, and that's the team ERA for starters. And you look at it and go, man, it's horrible. And they're 45 games back out of the AL Central. Well, that is still, you can't deny the facts about how bad the starting pitching has been for Baltimore. But they are still worth a WAR-wise of, let's see here, 5.3. So, okay, what does that have to do with the Tigers? Well, the 1996 Tigers, which still by far is one of the worst pitching stats of all time, can't hold a candle to that 96 team. ERA of 6.64 among starters, WAR of 3.2, and a K per 9 of 5.07. 5.07. Look, I know the 90s were the steroid era, the late 90s where ERAs got out of hand, what have you. But Baltimore is still, for how bad Baltimore is right now, they still can't hold a candle to the 1996 Tiger squad. So there you go. The 96 Tigers, I don't think will be ever matched in terms of ERA among starters. 6.64 ERA. What helps Baltimore's overall team ERA is their bullpen's actually it's not great either, but at the same time, you look at the Tigers bullpen ERA from 1996, ERA of 5.97. However, K per 9 is 7.8, but negative -4 WAR. Oh, man. So, and then in terms of, to give you an idea of Baltimore's numbers for relievers this year, 5.67 with a K per 9 of 8.78 and an ERA, a WAR of 2.9. So their FIP is 4.79. So their bullpen has not been bad, but when you have no starters, does it really matter? No. So, Clint, man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Oh man, Clint Sadowsky. Ooh, wow, man, that's that 96 team. I remember Uper the name that still stands out to me. Outside of Felipe Lira was the great Brian Williams, because Brian Williams was another one of those Padres that they tried him out and it didn't work. And you also forget too, oh man, he was bad. 21, he allowed 21 home runs that season too. And it was just always, every time I saw him pitch, it was getting bombed. And they always just had to put him out there because they had no other choice. Yep.
96 was my only, where I grew up on the northwestern side of Upper Michigan.
Yeah.
My dad took me to see the Tigers in Milwaukee or Minnesota, usually Milwaukee. I only saw the Tigers play in Tiger Stadium one time in my life, and it was in '96. And they lost to the Orioles. I think it was 4-2. It was on a Wednesday night. My buddy and I had driven down to Detroit to see the U.S. Open at Oakland Hills because I was still playing a lot of golf in those days. So we went to see Tiger Stadium, and I got to see, after all the years of when I was a kid watching Alan Trammell play shortstop, he's playing third base that night. That was kind of a bummer because that's not where he's supposed to be. But the '96 year, if I had to in my lifetime, probably the nadir of my interest in Tiger baseball was probably 95, 96, 97. It was really a tough slog in those years. It was even worse. Somehow 2003 was just so bad. I almost got more interested again just to see how they're going to climb out of that hole.
Yeah, those '90s teams, like I said, anybody that I talk to online there's a certain kinship with those '90s teams because you talk about those teams like, yeah, man, Debbie Cruz was my shortstop. What? I mean, and you talk to fans about the 2006 Tigers, and there's a certain punk aesthetic to being a fan of the '90s Tigers. Like, yeah, I was there. I was around before all you jumped on the bandwagon in 2006 and da. And that's me. That is me right there. I will take ownership of that. It's one of those things where I kind of wear that as a badge of honor. I watched the '90s Tigers and I survived. So speaking of surviving, by the way, you want to talk about how to survive escaping your manhood?
It's wondering where you're going with this.
Yeah, all right.
Where you're going is below the belt.
Exactly. So we're here for the Manscaped product 4.0. There's so much great things about Manscaped that I can go on and on about it. But listen, you know what it does. It's the Lawnmower 4.0 does what it's supposed to do. It takes care of your package. It trims everything up. And we didn't want to do the copy in front of the ladies last week because, quite frankly, why would we want to talk about our balls? So, at any rate, get the Performance Package 4.0 for Manscaped. You can find in there the Lawnmower 4.0, the trimmer, the weed whacker, ear, nose, hair trimmer, crop preserver, ball deodorant, crop reviver tone, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag that holds all this stuff. And it's really, really cool. The advanced skin safe technology from the Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, and it's got a really cool light on it, and it's even waterproof. So use it in the shower and trim up your stuff and go from there. So how do you get on that? So get 20% off and free shipping with the code FANSIDED20 at manscaped.com. That is 20% and free shipping with the code FANSIDED20 at manscaped.com. So if you want some nicer pubic area or whatever,
and who doesn't?
Yeah, if you want a nice stem, this I heard on Drew and Mike podcast. There you go. So,
and it's a perfect time to order if you've got any sort of genital themed Halloween costume in mind.
Here's my $1 million idea. Everybody who reads the copy of these articles or these ads, we need to get Janice and Crystal to do like a pop-up video commentary. Running commentary.
Yeah.
I think people pay for that.
Oh, man. Yeah, Ben Stark, by the way. Yeah, Ben, I'm glad that you survived the '90s Tigers, my friend. So, without further ado.
The good.
Oh, that's good.
The bad.
Oh, that's bad.
And the ugly.
All right, it's now time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Chris.
All right. So, my good for this week is Ranger Suarez, which, first of all, cool name, bro. Ranger Suarez is a lefty for the Phillies, and he's been with the Phillies organization forever. They signed him out of Venezuela in 2012, and he finally popped up in the majors in 2018, and he was a starter all through the minors, but converted to relief in 2019 and had a pretty decent season. 3.14 ERA over 48 innings, but not very dominant. It was like a 7 strikeout per 9 kind of reliever. And then last year he threw just 4 innings. I don't know if it was injuries or what. They weren't very good. This year, they brought him back and put him in the bullpen, and he was outstanding. 1.12 ERA through July with a strikeout per inning.
Nice.
Yeah, awesome. And then in August, they randomly put him in the starting rotation. Like, hey, you know what? Why don't you just start again? And, you'd expect that to be a disaster, except he's been excellent. In 10 starts now, he's got a 1.99 ERA with 49 strikeouts and 49 innings. He's basically stayed the same. His fastball, slider, and changeup are all grading out as above average pitches for him. And he's been good for 1.6 WAR in the last 2 months, which is tied for the 11th most by any pitcher in baseball. So just kind of some strange found money there for the Phillies. And they needed it. I don't know if they're going to pull this one out. But, and while I was looking at pitchers from the last 2 months, I noticed, Suarez is one of the better lefties. And then I saw the worst lefty, and it's Jesus Luzardo. And if people don't know Jesus Luzardo, just a quick backstory. He was born in Peru, and he's the only Peruvian in the Baseball Reference, on Baseball Reference, only Peruvian in Major League Baseball history, which is kind of cool. But he did grow up in the United States and went to Stoneman Douglas High School, graduated in 2016, so a couple of years before the infamous shooting there, fortunately. But he was considered one of the top high school pitchers in all of baseball back in 2016, but then blew out his arm in I think March, like right before the draft, Yep. And so what happened was the Nats did what they seemingly do every year, was they let a good and or injured player fall to them in the third round, and then they gave him like second round money and signed him. And he came back healthy and looking good, and then they traded him pretty quickly to the A's for Ryan Madsen and Sean Doolittle. So you got to think back then that the Nats were just going for it. So we need relievers. We'll trade our young guy. And then with the A's, he became one of the very best prospects in all of baseball. Top 10 to Baseball America overall in 2019 and 2020. And he came up in 2019 for a little bit and was fine. Or was it last year? I don't remember.
I think last year.
Yeah, he looked pretty solid. And then this year, he's just been awful. Just not good at all. And in the middle of the year, the A's traded him straight up for Starling Marte, who was an expiring contract, which or you don't see those trades much anymore, but it actually looks like it's going to work out for the A's, at least so far. I guess they're not making the playoffs, so maybe not. But in any event, Marte over the last 2 months, 7.13 ERA in 10 starts covering 48 innings. He's given up 9 homers and allowed 30 walks, which is 7 more than any other qualified starter at the time. So, it's been really bad. He's not quite 24, though, so there's still plenty of time for him to figure it out. But, the right-handed hitters just destroy him. So he's got to figure something out there, maybe develop a cutter or something. He's got a really strange 4-pitch mix where he throws 4 pitches 25% of the time, which you would think would be like, hey, it's hard to predict, but they just murder his fastball. So, and my ugly is a little bit strange. It's going to seem unfair, but it's Salvador Perez. And I get it. Well, so here's the thing. I mean, you can't deny him. This season, 46 home runs, 115 RBIs, leading the American League in both categories, at least tied for home runs last I checked. Most homers by a catcher in Major League history. It's just, it's awesome. And some people love him. He catches, he goes out there every day. He works well with pitchers. And yet, I looked it up. So there are 127 seasons in Major League history in which a hitter has hit 46 or more home runs. And right now, Perez has the 6th lowest FWAR among those 127, ahead of only Jose Canseco in 1998, Mark Trumbo in 2016, Chris with a K Davis in 2018, and Ryan Howard in 2007 and 2008. So why is his WAR so low? Well, according to StatCast, his framing has been worth negative 18 runs, almost 2 full wins with bad framing. Easily the worst in the majors, tied for the worst by any catcher since StatCast has started tracking this back in 2015. And it's just weird. 30 years ago, he might have won the MVP award or, been top 3. And now he'll probably get some votes, but they'll be probably down ballot votes from people in the Midwest. And it's a very strange season. Now, to be fair, he's got 5+ WAR to Baseball Reference. So it's a great season there. But just I don't know, kind of ugly defense. Mars and otherwise spectacular accomplishment.
Something about Kansas City players, their defensive reps don't always match their production.
Hosmer.
We've heard this. Yeah, Hosmer's prime example. even some people thought Alex Gordon slipped a little bit before the numbers caught the slippage, and there have been others. But you've heard whispers about, Salvador Perez's defense is a little overvalued. And so obviously the numbers are catching up to that too.
That's fair.
But it's insane. His home run stretch here has just been really something to pay attention to.
Yeah, he's making it ugly for opposing pitchers.
Yeah.
So top of the seventh right now, 6-4 Toledo, as Louisville got an extra run here, the last part of the bottom of the sixth. So hopefully Toledo gets another insurance run.
All right. So good for me. Good, bad, and ugly. We're going good. We're going. I was looking at the Kiermaier Barucki flap. Yeah,
I'm glad you bring that up. The good call there, Uper.
Between the Blue Jays and the Rays. And I'm putting it under good because baseball needs a small amount of these things to happen, right? It keeps things interesting. It's fun for everybody. So people can say, oh, it's bad. They're throwing at people. And I get that part. But it's a little bit good, too, to have a little controversy and juice things up. They had a play at the plate. Small, I think Alejandro Kirk, the catcher for the Blue Jays, fell on top of Kiermaier. And what happened is his info card, scouting card, fell out of his pocket. And Kiermaier scooped it up and took it with him. And nobody was any worse for the wear until somebody figured it out on tape. And they happen to have wonderful video of it. Personally, I think if you are going to lose your card and the other team scoops it up, more power to them. I don't see how the Blue Jays were so put off by this. I mean, their guy dropped a card. Big deal. If they want to throw at him, fine. But it really became a thing. Barucki hit him between the numbers, and it was high on the numbers. So I wouldn't have blamed the Rays if they had thrown back at them, because that was a little too high for my taste. I mean, he goes a little higher, and now he's up in the back of the head when he turned his back to that pitch. So people were giving the Blue Jays a lot of credit for sticking up for themselves on this one. I kind of go the other way. I didn't see anything wrong with Kiermaier picking up that card, and the Blue Jays pitch was a little high. So, but it was fun. It was always fun to, see the benches clear and do that thing. As long as we don't see it every day, it's fine with me. My other quick good, though, is an umpire, some nameless umpire on TikTok in Louisiana. A coach comes by and with a real smart-ass tone goes, "You're being paid $45 to ruin this game." Okay? So the umpire reaches in his pocket, finds his game check, tosses it at the coach. He goes, "Yeah, you're right. You finished the game." And he left. Mic dropped and left. Wow. And I tell you, as an umpire, I've never done that. I've never come close to it, but I love it. I would love to have done it at some point in my life. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
It was about a 15-second video. I don't know anything that happened afterwards, but it was really fun to see.
If you find a link, Uper, please do so I can put it in the show description for tomorrow, because I would love to see that. Okay,
I will find that. That won't be a problem. It's on a umpire Facebook chat room. So,
nice.
No sweat.
I just find it funny, Uper, that there's just like underground group. But anyways, we're gonna go on about it. Go ahead and finish up.
My bad. It's going to be good for the Royals, but it's going to be bad for us. I was looking at the home run numbers in Omaha for Bobby Witt Jr. with 32 home runs this year, Nick Pratto 31, and MJ Melendez 38. So between the three of those guys, that's 101 homers.
Wow, that's a lot of homers.
Yeah, those are three good hitters, especially Bobby Witt. I think Bobby Witt's going to end up having a 30-30 season if he gets 2 more steals this week. And I don't know how often that happens in the minors. So, the Royals, the 2018 pitching draft class, are all up in the majors now, and some of them are getting knocked around, but the fact are they're in the majors. People talk about that pitching that they have, but man, they got some hitters coming. We as Tiger fans hope the Tigers can challenge the White Sox here, but I think the Royals are going to be right in that mix. because I think Bobby Witt's the real deal. Looks like Melendez and Prado will be as well, at least at some point. They got that Nick Lofton in high A, another shortstop, really hitting well. He's hit 10 homers. Kyle Isbell's back in the majors now. He was a third-round pick. He had 15 homers in Omaha. The Royals are going to be sneaky good in a couple of years.
Yeah, I was watching those when the Hens were out there in Omaha, and it definitely feels like that is a huge like home run park.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's necessarily like I think Witt is going to put him out anywhere, and so is Melendez, and so is probably Kansas City is kind of a tough place to hit home runs, but in that case they're just going to have a whole mess of doubles, and they're still going to score a lot of runs. Like these are good hitters, so I think that's it'll be fun to watch the Central in a couple of years.
Hey, if things develop as we hope in Detroit, I think it's going to be some real good wars between those teams. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, and the Royals also are getting this really good reputation of how they treat their minor league players and how they treat their players in general. And so that kind of matters with everything that's been going on. You hear about the horse race, what's going on with the Angels and the A's. The little things like that do help. And I can't help but notice, you look at some of the Salvador Perez, Nick Gordon retired with the team. A lot of those guys stick around and come in some way, shape, or form. So I would like to see that come back, hopefully, for the Tigers with some of these players they have. But again, the Royals have done a really good job of continuing development, even on the international side of things, too. So the Tigers still have some ways to go on that. So my good and bad ugly this week starts with the Braves and Charlie Morton. And I haven't put the Braves on the good and bad and ugly, I don't think, all year. But the reason why I wanted to mention him is because this is a guy in the second half of the season who's really, at the age of 37, has been kind of like a ageless wonder a little bit, and he's really kind of put it on for the Braves as they try to hold off Philly for the AL East title. His K per 9 right now is kind of down, but of course he needs more starts to kind of. But the second half of the season, since the All-Star break, he has been almost, his numbers have looked better. I mean, the identical FIP is his model consistency. In the first half, it was 3.40. Second half, 3.26, K rate of 10.27. And he's actually dropped his walk rate from 3.0 to 2.6 a little bit. So his K rate's also dropped, or is actually increased too. And he has done a better job of holding down. Batters are only batting 201 against him. So he's going out there and being the stat face they need him to. And so for Braves fans right now, it's almost like you already know what's going to happen. If they win the AL East, is it really, if they're just going to matter in the postseason, and they always tend to choke in the postseason. We'll see what happens, but kudos to Charlie Morton. What a great season he's had.
Yep.
My bad is the San Diego Padres who won today. They came back and won. And if you notice something about their lineup, and they're also going to be part of my ugly too. They gave somebody a day off that kind of stands out a little bit, and that would be Manny Machado. And so Hai Sung Kim played third base today, was batting 201, and he was the one that started for him. So that was kind of the way them saying, you know what, we're done here. And Machado, and of course, the whole situation with Tatis Jr. happened earlier in the week. Where was that? Or was that earlier in the week or last week? I can't. Everything's kind of blending together right now. But
maybe over the weekend.
It was over the weekend, okay. And that's where Machado was trying to get him to calm down, and of course, it was kind of blown up at first, but then it realized it was trying to have Tatis Jr. stay in the game. But that situation right now, you look at the standings, and it's so strange to see it's strange to think that this is why baseball is such a great game. Everybody and their mother, beginning of the season, was before the season ends, like the Padres are gonna, it's gonna be the Padres, the Dodgers, and it's gonna, blah blah blah. It's gonna be great. And the Padres have just faded. And I mean, and there was somebody who was pointing out this on Twitter, and I thought it was outstanding. The Tigers are 74 and 78. The San Diego Padres are 77 and 75. So it's, if you would have told me that the Tigers within striking distance of the Padres in terms of wins this year before the season began, I would have told you you're nuts. But that's the way baseball crumbles. Oh God, that was such a cheesy term. I'm sorry, folks, for anybody listening online or listening to the podcast. That was terrible. But the other part of the pound in the ugly too is with the Padres in terms of what they're doing. There's a lot of shakeups right now, and they are, in addition to not making the postseason, they're just deciding to cut bait with. They decided to cut bait with their organization moves to just similar to the Tigers, but Sam Gainey, who was the farm director, was let go. They're rechanging staff a little bit. They gave a couple people some promotions, with amateur scout director Mark Connell transitioning to a new role as a special assistant general manager, which means no more responsibility for you, possibly. I mean, when you always think of special assistant, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to stereotype, but when you think of special assistant, does that mean anything? You're handling a super important role, or am I just imagining that?
It's so nebulous of a term. It's hard to say. I don't know.
Chris, I mean, we've seen the special assistant label on a couple things before. Did he go? What happened to Chris?
He's talking and there's no noise.
All right, Chris. Why is it not? Is your mic on? What's going on here? Oh man, I got your mic unmuted. Oh boy.
The thing is, right now he is solving the mysteries of baseball. It's all in there, and none of it's coming through. It's lost forever.
Well, in the other part of this too, and the ugly is the Jake. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Oh, nothing. Yeah, I sorry, I muted it to get Zach Short catch, and and my StreamYard has been acting up today for whatever reason, and so I can't unmute it and mute it. So yeah, whatever. But yeah. Anyway, show meeting.
What were you gonna say though, Chris, about the Padres?
I don't even know if I was gonna.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what I was gonna say. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. And then the other part of the ugly too about the Padres is the Jake Arrieta run of it's designated for the assignment on Tuesday, and it looks like I'm not sure if he's gonna be able to catch on for next year, but he had 4 starts. He allowed 15 earned runs, so 12.1 innings, and yeah, he's pretty much they try to hopefully put some sort of optimism behind him, but it's a guy who came over from Chicago after the Cubs got rid of him, who posted a 6.88 ERA. So it's and you forget that he was so it's just kind of like you said, it's I don't have any foregone conclusions, but better days have probably seen better days. So the Padres are a mess. You expect a lot more out of this, and again, always on to next year. So that is the good and the bad and the ugly this week. We have questions. We have a trade, and there's one thing I want to wrap on was the grips of the baseball conversation that started with the AAA game we're watching this evening. But we'll get to that in a second. But I want to get to the questions, because we had a question or a trade request about a second baseman. As the Reds they walked him off. Oh man,
walk off. Who's that? Alfredo Rodriguez with the walk-off homer against who's that pitching?
Number 48. So I'm trying to think of who that for the Mudhens is.
That is Will Vest. Will Vest just gave up the 3-run homer.
Yep.
Walk-off win. That was Narciso Crook.
Oh, okay. That's going towards the Bats charity, and so there we go. And then what was that? That was weird.
He was ducking the Gatorade bath. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that was the dead center. That was there was nothing, no doubt about that
bomb.
one.
That was a bomb. It was Vest. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, that's man. Anyway,
tough one to lose. So we got questions.
Fire away.
So let's see. What do we have? We have Thomas Botsford. This was a response to Rogelio's article about trading with Oakland. And he said, the guy isn't on Oakland, but if the shortstop hunt isn't great, how much would it cost to acquire Ketel Marte? Switch hitter, has played second base, shortstop, and center field. Nice contract, and only 28 years old.
I like that. That was a good question.
Yeah, and I think you said that he mentioned Marte within the last month, and I think I had Marte as my good in like the first or second week of the season when we were doing our shows. But he's definitely an interesting player. So I don't know. You have any thoughts about it?
I would love to see them get the guy. I watched, my in-laws live in Arizona, so I've watched a lot of Arizona baseball compared to a lot of other teams when I'm out there, and I've seen him play. I like the guy a lot. He has, a sneaky power. Gets on base. He's been, I think, between 2019 to now, batting average wise anyway, he's like top 5 in baseball. Certainly, he would be a huge upgrade to the Tigers lineup. Here's the thing. He has 3 years of control left after this year. He's, any trade for him is going to hurt. You're going to feel the pinch. That's going to be one of those trades, if they were to make it, at least 60% of the Tiger fans are saying, "Are you kidding? We can't
trade prospects for them.
We can't give that up," because that one's going to have to hurt. You're not going to get him on the cheap. So the question there is, how far are you willing to go for a player? He's been playing on a last place team or an unsuccessful team for the most part. So you're bringing him in and hoping he leads you to victory. That's always a little bit of an unknown. But again, I like the guy. He can play second base or center field. I really don't think he's a shortstop anymore. I think it's been a while since he's played a steady amount of shortstop, and I don't even know if he was that good at it. But I don't care where he plays. Put him in center field. Beautiful. The guy can hit. But are you willing to give up Tarek Skubal and Dylan Dingler for him?
Yeah.
How about that? Boom. What do you think?
Back to Arizona. Well, that's the thing, because as you said, he's about to turn 28, I think, next month. So he's still really young, and signed for 3 years and $30 million total.
We should have seen birthday.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Cattell and Aurelio.
By the way, Lynn Henning retweeted the Ryan Kreidler home run with the quote, "Interesting prospect," as they say. Classic Lynn.
Well, as Yoop was alluding, he's going to cost you. I was checking over baseball trade values, which of course is never concrete, but it's always kind of fun to look at. And Marte is worth more to them than every Tigers player except for Green and Torkelson. Yeah. So as you're saying, it's going to be like a Skubal or a Mize. There are a couple things that I am slightly worried about with Marte. He's been injured this year, and his sprint speed has fallen off a cliff in the last couple of years. Now, maybe that's all due to the injuries or whatever, but it would make me pause for a second. So back in 2017, he was top 30 in baseball in sprint speed, 29 feet per second, one of, close to elite. This year, he's actually below average, ranked 340th. It's like 26 something feet per second. So
interesting. Yeah.
Now, if you'd assume a drop off like that has to do with health, but if there's something else going on there, then you worry about maybe his ability to continue playing center field. And as you were saying, it's probably not shortstop. So then you're getting a second baseman. Again, he's still a great hitter, so that's not going to hurt you. But it's something I would consider. And then the one other thing I would consider is, would you rather trade for Marte, or would you rather go out and try to sign Chris Taylor, who is kind of a similar player? Not exactly. He's not as good of a hitter, but he plays basically the same three. It's kind of a strange up the middle utility guy. But with Taylor, you're getting a quality player without giving up any of your prospects. You're just paying a little bit of money. You might have to, if he gets a qualifying offer, you may have to, forfeit a draft pick. But I don't know, it's an interesting option there to me if you're looking for that kind of up the middle guy.
And I started a series of trade partners throughout the season and winter. And I know that there's fans out there who are going to, I've already kind of detected the hint of sarcasm with, well, he's just doing this to get clicks. Okay, well, maybe I'm just doing this to stir conversation as well. I don't know what else to suggest out there, but either way, with the Oakland A's right now, even with the Diamondbacks, as intriguing as it is, because it's just such a dumpster fire over there. But either way, I think having these conversations about possible players to fit in is good, because in a way, some Tiger fans are always just in Uper. I think you can test this one too with the Steve Kemp trade over to Chicago for Chet Lemon. Tiger fans were irate. I mean, I went back and went to newspapers.com, and I was looking through some of the comment sections of the day, and then people were like, "Oh, I hate this trade." And then Kemp kind of fell off a cliff, literally. Not literally, but you know what I mean. Like, he wasn't. Wow, that was bad. Steve Kemp wasn't as productive as he was for Chicago that he was in Detroit. And Chet Lemon became one of a staple mark before. I mean, he had, I think it was a blood clot issue, is why I think he was retired. But nevertheless, Chet Lemon paid off for the Tigers. It was a good move. You have to move prospects at some point. And I'm not saying move Matt Manning or anything like that. I did say that earlier, but at the same time, you can't just go, you know what, here's Bo Brisky or here's Adam Wolf. Team is going to ask for your best players.
Yep.
Simple as that. And if the Tigers are going to willing to you have to gambit and gamble or gambit. You have to gamble every once in a while to get what you need for your team.
You can't assume you're going to hoodwink the other guy, right? And if you're really getting a good player, it's going to hurt a little. I mean, that's the best way I can say it. You got to feel the pinch. Otherwise, you're probably not getting that great of a guy.
Yeah.
This is not the Dave Dombrowski era. It's not. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
So the other trade idea was for the Pirates, correct, Chris? That was the
Well,
I guess a show.
I did want to say one thing though about. I'm not sure if there's ever been a baseball player who literally fell off a cliff. It probably happened, but I do know the story of Ed Delahanty. Do you know that one?
He fell off a train in 1903 or whatever.
Yeah, fell out of fell off into Niagara Falls after being removed from a train for being too drunk. So that's close enough, I think, to falling off a cliff, falling out of Niagara Falls. But anyway, yeah. So there was Explain sent us a question about a kind of similar player, a center fielder, and his question. What would you give up to acquire Brian Reynolds from Pittsburgh? He said, I think Badu and Paredes would be a starting point, but what else would need to be added? So, yeah, I mean, this is another one.
Well, he's a 5+ WAR guy this year.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a 383 on base and a 511 slug right now. He's controlled through 26.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because Reynolds, I remember him in college because he played at Vanderbilt. And, you know, whenever somebody's at Vanderbilt, you go, hey, I wonder if the Tigers are going to draft him.
Yep.
But he was taken in the second round. I think there were some questions about his, swing and miss.
Yep.
And the Giants actually ended up trading him for Andrew McCutchen, which seems like, 3 generations of Giants ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about it, he was never a super highly touted prospect, never a top 100 guy. He was always kind of like he was a top 10 in the system, but never crazy regarded. And then he came into the majors, was awesome as a rookie, but people looked at him and said, hey, look at that. He's got like a 390 BABIP. This is all luck. And then last year he kind of stunk. It was the BABIP dropped all the way down, and I think he hit like 180, 190.
Yeah, 190, yeah.
But yeah, now this year, like you were saying, he responded to that by striking out less, walking more, and hitting for more power, which will do. And he's, to StatCast, he's an above average runner, and he's one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. To StatCast, by about outs above average. Fangraphs and defensive run saves both have him as kind of slightly below average, like a -3, nothing crazy. So yeah, you're talking about a center fielder, 5 WAR player, controllable for 4 years. To me,
he's also not arbitration eligible till next year.
Yeah, to me, that's a player Pittsburgh should build around. But unless they're going to go full Tampa and start trading guys as soon as they get slightly more expensive, then yeah, I'd love to go after him. But that's again, I think Badu, Paredes, I think you'd have to throw in one of the pitchers. I mean, you're talking about probably one of the more valuable players in baseball right now, based on his contract and his production.
Let's assume Pittsburgh is competent for a second when they have these negotiations, which might be a stretch.
Yeah.
Who's the first person Pittsburgh asked for? They got to ask for Riley Green that trade, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what they're asking for.
Absolutely.
So you want to do that? You want to build something around Riley Green for Brian Reynolds? I don't know.
I might. I love Riley Green, but you're getting a center,
Chris.
A switch hitting center fielder. He's 6 years older than Riley Green, so you got to factor that. But you're getting a switch hitting center fielder who produces on offense and defense for 4 years. But
it's probably not 1-for-1. You probably got to add on to Riley.
No,
too.
I would agree. Yeah, so it's definitely. That's put up or shut up time if you're going to go out and
get off our show.
But there you go. So yeah, that's a good, an interesting one. And to get back to what you were saying, Raj, about people complaining about, like writing trade pieces, they're kind of fun to do. I don't know, like there's a reason a lot of us play fantasy sports. We like to pretend to be GMs, and it's kind of fun to speculate. And I try to. I mean, some of it's silly. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like doing player comps when you're talking about prospects. Like some people just don't like to do it at all because it's, it just doesn't feel right. But I kind of enjoy trying to come up with the most realistic trades and player comps. Just like it's like something I try to do. So yeah, I think it's fun. And I thought your trade idea, I mean, we talked about it beforehand, but I thought Paredes and Manning for Montas makes sense for both sides. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, again, I looked at the free agent pitching market, and it's kind of an older market. Mm-hmm. And Justin Verlander's not going to solve all your issues. I'm sorry. I'm just being realistic about it coming after the surgery he had. And Joey Wentz is going to get better because he's going to be a second year of Tommy John, which we've seen that the second year after coming back from Tommy John, you tend to pitch better. His command was off, and and then Alex Fado, it's going to take him some time too, because he's going to be coming back. And of course, if he's not fronting the Foo Fighters at the moment with his hair, I mean, his hair is out of hand. I don't know if you guys have seen it or not, but it's honestly, there's a lot of factors that come into play with the Tigers because Turnbull is out next year. Matt Boyd might be out, and he's looking at his elbow right now. And if you're going in this free agent market, I mean, outside of the shortstop, which is obvious, they have to be creative when it comes to pitching. And so I look, you're going to tell me that Matt Manning and Casey Mize and Tarek Schoolboy are going to pitch 200 innings next year? No, I'm sorry, they're not. And Manning's had some forearm issues too, and of course, he's pitched better as of late. But a team's going to ask for a pitcher. The A's, even in the lower levels, and there was something that I noticed today, the A's don't really have much in low or high A either. The best guy was sent to Double A, and I'm drawing a blank on his name at the moment, but they don't. The reason why their system is ranked so low is because they don't really have a lot of depth at all in pitching. Nick Allen, the second baseman, was hitting Las Vegas. It's no sure thing either. Jed Lowry's 37 years old. And this is his third tour duty. And, Michael brings up a good point, too. Are we going to offer Matt Boyd arbitration with the elbow? That's a very good question.
The way I see it, like, when you hear these things about his elbow, to me, he's either got to get surgery now or he's going to try to rehab it and end up getting surgery next year. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a mild strain or something and not more serious. But that he's seeing multiple doctors makes me think that he's going to either get surgery now or later. And either way, I don't think you want to give that guy a contract, or at least not arbitration. Maybe you non-tender him, and if you love him, you give him a multi-year deal with a couple opt-outs and clauses and so forth. That it's a $1 million next year and up to 10 the next if something works out, something like that, if they really want him back. But I don't think you can give him, because he's going to make $8-9 million in arbitration.
Yep.
I don't think you can risk it, as it were.
I'll be stunned if they do that. Yeah. I really would. I mean, in a year where you hope they will, where they sat out last year, we don't have to revisit it, but they sat out last year's free agent market for the big tickets. We're hoping, most people are hoping, they go big this year, and they fill some holes via free agency. You have a nice $8 million slot that you can lop off your payroll and redirect to something productive right there in front of you. And, Matt Boyd's been a good Tiger. He's had his moments. But let's face it, he's highly inconsistent when he is healthy, and for a lot of time he's not healthy. So I don't think it's a big decision. Your idea of non-tendering and getting him on something cheap is fine if they do that.
Yeah. I'm for that.
Yeah, because everybody likes Matthew Boyd as a guy. He's got this great foundation or whatever, and I think there are ways to make it happen. But I just don't think he's going to be worth that much money. We did have two more questions, although one of them was a continuation from from last week from Michael's question about Akil Baddoo, where we kind of we dismissed it as him just saying, "Hey, you want to move Baddoo to first?"
Yeah, sorry.
Like, get out of here! Get out of here with that. No,
Yeah.
but what he wanted to know more was, can we picture Baddoo going down to Toledo at all next year? And if so, what does he need to work on? And I think Yoop actually wrote a season preview where he mentioned Baddoo starting in Toledo and got some pushback on that, right? Let's get your thoughts first.
First off, he would not be the first guy who ever survived or even thrived in his Rule 5 season and went back to the minors to work on some stuff. So it's not unheard of. Obviously, he needs more at bats against left-handers if they want to make him an everyday ball player. Although the other day he had a couple off of Keuchel, which was great to see. That was very nice. Although Keuchel's been pretty blah this year, but still he did it. That's great. I would say, when you're trying to write a piece like I did, just speculating on next year's roster, I didn't want to be vanilla because there's always a surprise. There's always something that shocks you. Most years somebody didn't make it or somebody did. What if Baddoo hits, 165 in spring training next year, or whatever? Maybe does he start in Toledo? But odds are good that he's on the team. I think he's played very well. He's a great athlete. He has a nice approach at the plate. We talked about that a million times. But is it 10% chance they want him working down there and hitting left-handers? I think it's possible.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of tough because what he needs to work on really is facing major league lefties and more specifically hard throwing major league lefties. They seem to leave him in there. They'll leave him against the guys like Keuchel who don't necessarily throw the hardest. So that's something he can work on. I think they might also just want to get him more innings in center field.
Yeah,
just to work on his defense because. You see the athleticism, and the speed. He just needs to get the instincts and the routes and the reads. And if you don't necessarily want him to work on that in the majors, you could do that down in Toledo, and it wouldn't be a big deal. And like you said, we've seen. Remember, Rick Porcello was up his entire rookie year in Detroit and was down in Toledo the next year because it wasn't working out great. So sometimes guys head down there just for a tune-up and get their head straight. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see that at some point. I think had this been year 2 for Baddoo, we would have seen him down in Toledo by May. That rough stretch he had in April. And it's fantastic and great for his development that he pulled out of it. But normally, if you could send a guy down at that point, you do, just because.
And a lot will depend on what they do. Let's say what if they traded for Ketel Marte? What if they signed Starling Marte or Michael Conforto or whoever? I mean, just insert a name. That at some point there's a little bit of a roster crunch and who gets aced out at that point.
Not to mention too, the more teams get to see him and the more video that comes out there's opportunities to go, okay, we can address this, and this, and it's up to him to make the adjustments. And he might need time in AAA to do so. It's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to come back, hit 330, hit 20 home runs. You would like that to happen. But if he struggles in the beginning of the season, it's one of those things you can't. And Michael brings up a good point. If you have a chance of Baddoo and Toledo and Green, you have to bring in a free agent outfielder. You can't exactly block them. No, you're absolutely right. But if the Tigers have an opportunity to upgrade their outfield and get a guy like Sterling Marte, why not? Don't pass it up. No. Again, I mean, I know there's a contingency of fans like, I don't want the team to spend money. We don't need bring up the kids. Okay, but then you'll be the first to complain when the kids struggle. So what is it? I mean, I don't understand the logic with that.
I think earlier this week I wrote a piece at MCB, and it said AJ Hinch knows the answer is yes, and the question is, do they need to upgrade their roster next year despite the winning that they're doing right now? I think he knows it's yes. I think a lot of people know it's a yes. This has been a great team in terms of effort, in terms of surprising us, but it's still a sub 500 team. And they're already working on bringing Torkelson and Green into the fold, so they know they need upgrades from the roster on hand. And we're talking about free agents. So we're already going to flip over 30-40% of the lineup just because we already see that handwriting on the wall. So yeah, some of the fans have really cottoned on to these guys like Derek Hill and Grossman and Badu, and that's great because they've done good things this summer. But I'm still not convinced they're the future.
Yeah, and let's say the Tigers view Badu and Green both as future left fielders. We've seen they've been playing Green in left field consistently. We see some rough throws from him lately. I don't know if maybe he's injured. I mean, they were playing him in left field today in Stewart in right. Kristen Stewart, we remember his arm. It's they could very well see that they're kind of redundant, and they could trade Akil Baddoo. I mean, he's been a huge fan favorite. I hope they don't. It's awesome, but he's also pretty valuable now for them, and it's found money.
Don't say that, Chris.
No, like we said earlier, if you go out and get Brian Reynolds, you're going to have to trade Riley Green, maybe if not him, Akil Baddoo, and a whole bunch of pitching. Who knows? So, I don't know. I could see him down in Toledo. I could see him anywhere else in baseball. Hopefully, we see him in Comerica, but you never know.
I mean,
he might also have a huge spring training, and he might be the opening day left fielder.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You know?
Well, and we were having this discussion kind of privately the other day. Somebody tweeted at Mark Gorosh about he wanted a player comp for Akil Baddoo for his ceiling. And if for whatever reason, it was something I had never actually considered. I never thought like, hey, how good can this guy get? And the name that I thought of, and I was kind of hesitant to say out loud, but while we're here, we might as well do it, is Curtis Granderson. Like a 95th percentile outcome for Akil Baddoo is a lefty center fielder with power, patience, and speed who struggles a little bit against southpaws. Now, as I was saying, I wouldn't project Akil Baddoo to hit 40 home runs one year, but I never thought Granderson would either.
Yeah.
Again, and like I'm saying, that's like a 95th percentile. Mark, I think, mentioned Randy Arozarena as a potential outcome. Go ahead.
You know who jumped out at me? And this is going back a decade or a little more than that. And he's right-handed, not left-handed, so bear with me. But Shannon Stewart was the kind of guy.
That's a good comp, yeah.
That was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, I remember him with
That's a nice player
with the Twins, and then with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, Toronto. Yeah,
very nice player. So yeah, that's a good comp. I don't know. It's interesting to think of for sure. But in any event, so that was. I don't know if we had anything more to discuss there.
No, another player too that comes to mind is, again, this is kind of an older player, but for whatever reason, kind of reminds me a little bit. He batted right-handed too. Was Devon White, former Blue Jay, he played for a lot of different teams, but in terms of, he was always like in the 17, 20 home run guy, but he had a lot of speed and covered a lot of ground playing center field. So,
I mean, if we're going back and we're talking about, big guys, lefties with power, speed, and not so much arm strength, I mean, you could go Kirk Gibson if you want to.
Yeah, fans would definitely get a kick out of that. And then the Tigers are in a strange position that they almost like if history repeats itself for some of the older fans. The 1979 Tigers come to mind because this is when Sparky took over, and you have fan favorites like Jason Thompson, who was among one of the first power hitting first basemen since Norm Cash. I mean, this was the guy who essentially was going to be the next generation of the Tigers, and he was him and Sparky didn't jive because he, quote unquote, was lifting too much, and Sparky had his own way about that, which again, that's another error. He didn't like guys that were doing too much weightlifting. I digress. But beautiful. Yeah, you have like fan favorites like Thompson, Kemp, you had Ron LaFleur, who's getting a little older, but then you had also people who were obsessed with John Walkenfuss and all these players. All these fans love these players, but they had to do something in order to get competitive. And so that's where the Tigers are going to have to be at this point. There's going to be some players that the Tigers fans definitely love, and they're going to see gone. They're going to complain about it, but then when they start winning,
yeah. Well, so I mean, it's kind of a whole interesting discussion about where you are in the win curve, and theoretically, getting from 60 wins to 70 wins to 75 wins is really easy compared to going from 75 to 90.
Mm-hmm.
When you're going from where they are now to where they need to be, you've got to make some really tough decisions, and you've got to say goodbye to some solid players. You're not just getting rid of Brandon Dixon's anymore, not to pick on Brandon Dixon, but you know what I mean? Like a guy who could come and go, and you're not terribly worried about it. You're going to have to take somebody who's a 2-win player and get rid of him for a 4-win player, basically. And that's tough. It's tough to see guys like that go, but these are the hard choices, and this is where you can really screw up too. So, I mean, I always like to say the easy part, they've already done the easy part, but I don't know. So we'll see what comes of it. We did have one more question, and this was during the show from Steve Cook. I don't know if you saw it.
I missed that question.
Well, he said, for the podcast, Ryan Kreidler continues to hit home runs and very strong defense at shortstop. What do the Tigers do? Everyone wants the big shortstop fish. Where else can he play? So basically,
Well, he played a lot of third base in college, I believe.
He did.
And, I watched him play, again, 3 games, and I'm not a scout, so take that for what it's worth. He certainly moves. I can't imagine he can't play second base. He certainly has the arm for it. He's making throws from deep in the hole at short. So...
Yeah, and he had a great defensive series there against the Cubs. He made an error today. He's made a couple errors recently. That's going to happen for shortstops. I think, the power is what kind of surprised me. I mean, he's got what's looking now like potential legitimate third base power, and I would assume that he'd be an above-average defender at third base. So that would be interesting. You assume if a guy can play shortstop and third base, he could probably play, like you said, second base. He could probably play the outfield if they need to. He's 6'4".
Yeah.
He's hitting what, 330 in Toledo now with 7 home runs. Like he's walking more. He's turned into like this spectacular offensive player in Toledo, and it's just, for me, it's just like, this doesn't seem real. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe he made some real changes, but I'm skeptical that this is something that's going to translate to the major league level.
Well, the good news is he probably does not have a legitimate ticket to Detroit next year, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to have to prove he can do it again in Toledo.
Yeah.
Or something close to it anyway.
No, I agree. I mean, he'll be in spring training. He'll probably get some playing time. But yeah, everybody wants to upgrade at shortstop. And this is like what we were just talking about. It's like, hey, there's some good players you're going to have to pass on or move to get better. So, I mean, Correa is like a 5-6 win player this year?
Maybe more.
Yeah, but he's been outstanding on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to pass on Carlos Correa because you have Ryan Kreidler, no matter how much you like him. He's not, rookie Nomar Garciaparra. He's not A-Rod. He's got a lot of promise, but again, at worst he's a trade chip, and at best maybe you find a place for him to play, I guess.
Yeah, again, we're not trying to be negative about the whole thing, and I'm excited for the fact that Tigers, for what he's been able to do this season, considering he came up from short A in 2019 to now. This is Brian Kreidler. Look, we got that. He was on no prospects list. His name didn't even come up. It came up at the beginning of the year because that's strange. They're going to start him off in Double A. That seems like an aggressive assignment. We had no idea what he did in the offseason. Again, just if we had if we had the access to information, that makes a world of difference. But I digress. And look where he is now. And to me, it's almost like the Tiger fans are just going to say, hey, you know what? Screw spending money on Carlos Correa. Let's just get him in there. And then he goes off to let's say he starts the season and does like a Scott Sizemore type start or something like that. Then people are just going to start mentioning his name again. Like make a reference to that.
So many things can happen in baseball. He could end up back in Double A next year. If he starts off slow. You never know. You never know. But here's my sneaky half-witted comp on Kreidler. As I look at it, watch him play, look at his statistics. He's stolen, a dozen bags this year as well. When I was watching him, I was getting a Whit Merrifield vibe. That was what I was seeing when I was watching him play the other night. So
interesting.
If he turned into that kind of player, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we were putting Don Kelly comps on him earlier in the year, just because his swing reminded me of Don Kelly. He's kind of this tall, skinny guy, but Don Kelly never had this kind of pop.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know. It's yet another really interesting decision and some choices they're going to have to make. Maybe Ryan Garko will come in and go, you know what, this guy's the real deal. Maybe he'll go, hey, let's trade him.
I just want him to improve the offense and get bats. It doesn't have to. I'm not one of the people who's married it to has to be a shortstop. If they get a legit hitting outfielder and want to sign a cheaper shortstop on a 1 or 2 year deal, I doesn't bother me that much. And I would give Kreidler time to come around. So I guess.
Yeah, and there's no
winner.
I think Trey Turner is technically a free agent after next season if you want to wait for that. Although can't imagine if the Dodgers let Seager go, they're not going to let Trey Turner go too, I don't think. But yeah, you could always wait a year. But I don't know. Like Roger said, I think I could see it going backfiring both ways. They don't sign a big shortstop because they want to see what Kreidler can do and he falls in his face, or they do sign a big shortstop but he's hurt and not playing well. And meanwhile, Kreidler, they trade him for a reliever or something like that. And so I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough decision.
Told you guys. I told you. I told you Kreidler's going to be a star. No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, the minor leagues are not the major leagues. That's always the thing to remember.
Yeah, exactly. So I look at it this way. If he ends up being a productive player, it's just a win for the Tigers farm system. That's it. There's no other way to look at it. And I just want people to understand, like, if you want the Tigers to win now, they're going to have to spend a little bit. Mm-hmm. And Kreidler's not a foregone conclusion. I love it to be a foregone conclusion. He's a smart player. You can see the adjustments he's made, but just to have some semblance of reality. It's not a foregone conclusion. I feel like I'm just, preaching to the choir on that. But anyways, at any rate, what would be nice too? At some point, some international talent comes through. And Chris, I know we've talked about that offline a little bit and what you're working on, but that's where I think if we start seeing more, if we see the Bill Briskys coming up out of nowhere and popping up with the Reese Olsons, that to me is a sign of true going, okay, you know what? It's not just the top 3 rounds or top 5 rounds. You're getting contributions from guys in the 20th round, like you would with Brisky, for example. And that's where that to me is a step in the right direction. And that those are, as much as those small victories this year, Bro Brisky, Brendan White, that to me is progress. And that's something that you can't really say that we've had late round draft pick success like that before.
Not a ton of it, that's for sure.
Yeah. Is that the last question, Chris?
Yep, that's the last one I found. I was reading. Cody Stevenhagen wrote an article, a deep dive on Garko that went up, I think, right as the show was going up. So it was interesting because he's talking about developing the player development system, being able to fix or help those guys like 23, 26 man on the roster. So
it's good, and that's maybe they find a way. For example, we saw Andre Lipsius kind of struggle in the second half of the season. I think he's a valuable guy still because of his glove, but we'll see what happens.
You said that Garko is affiliated with Driveline?
Yes, correct. Yeah, he was a fan of
Kyle Boddy. Just kind of have some kind of note that went out online. He's no longer affiliated with a certain major league team.
The Reds.
He was a minor league pitching coordinator for the Reds, and he had brought on a couple guys, and that didn't work out.
Okay.
The timing of that was such that I had actually, and we had heard that maybe he interviewed with the Tigers for player development. So I threw him. I did that article about who they might go get. I was really going to kind of focus on Doug Latta, the swing doctor. But then I switched it over to Body on the last page. But yeah, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens there with Body, if he goes to another organization or if he prefers the independent route.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, either way, he is a man of on demand. So the Tigers tomorrow have Miguel Cabrera Day, 9/24. So they're going to honor Miguel Cabrera with a limited edition poster. So if you go down there, which I'm actually giving my poster to Danielle from the site, because I promised her she wanted to go to the game really bad, but because of borders, she's in Canada, she can't. So can do that. And Saturday is fan appreciation day, as that's going to be going on too, as the Tigers take on the Royals. And this is one of those series where, as they get closer to 500, the Royals are always finding a way to piss you off, and I think this is one of those weekends where the Royals are going to find a way to piss you off. So
is Mondesi playing? It's like so he can go 30 for 30 against the Tigers.
He is.
I'm trying to think of that random Royal player that's going to come up out of nowhere, just come in and bat in 191 or something, and then just have a moment or two. But
who's that first baseman they have who's hitting like 180? He had a good rookie year and then hasn't been any good since then. O'Hearn, is that right?
Yeah, O'Hearn.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still have Santana. They still have Nicky Lopez. I know he was part of the Good and Bad and Ugly a couple of weeks ago. But Andrew Benintendi, I think that's a guy who's going to come out this weekend and just bust some heads a little bit. So, and I forgot Mondesi was still on this roster. It just seems like it feels like it's been a while since we've seen the Royals. So,
yeah,
the Tigers and Royals had that one series early in the year where the Tigers swept them. Where every game the Royals had runners on base. And every single time with 2 out, that Hunter Dozier came up.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Single-handedly won that series for the Tigers.
That's crazy. So thank you so much for listening to the Tigers Radio Pod. And if you listen to us live, we really appreciate it and sticking around with us this evening. And we'll be back next week, as that'll be the final week of the regular. Well, technically, that's going to be the last full week of the regular season, as the season comes down to end on October 2nd. So, again, hopefully the Tigers are inching towards 500, so I have to jump into a whole bat of ice water and colder weather, or...
I forgot about that.
No, I didn't forget about that. I was hoping you guys would forget about it, but I know some fan out there going, nope.
I still haven't closed the pool, and it's been filling up with 50-degree rainwater, so...
Oh, man. I just want somebody standing by with a towel and a hot cocoa or whatever, however that somebody help me out there. So... hopefully, if the Tigers are at 500, if not, it's fine. Thank you for everybody, again, for checking us out. And the 5-star reviews, by the way, we had an Australian fan check us out and give us a 5-star review, and thank you. And we'll definitely keep you posted on all the Australian baseball. We have Zach Shepard, we have Jack
O'Loughlin,
and we have, I'm trying to think of Andrew. I think there's another Tiger.
There used to be a kid named Beatty. I don't know if he's still in the system.
I think he was in Lakeland, wasn't he?
He may have been, but I don't know anymore.
Either way, thanks for listening. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Oh, Ulrich. Oh, yeah. He's South African. There we go.
Well, he was born in South Africa, but he grew up in Australia.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's true.